We start now managing a project, and we did learning outcome 1 in previous session, how to understanding how to manage a computing project. And today we will discuss the learning outcome 2, be able to manage a computing project. And we will discuss project plan structure, including the two strategies like a work breakdown structure and logic network, managing projects, project risks, and monitoring project progress, and which includes the measuring progress, schedule plans, dealing with problems, Prince 2 methodology. Yeah. So we start with the first slide. Project plan structure. So we'll discuss the work breakdown structure. A work breakdown structure in project management and systems engineering is a deliverable oriented breakdown of the project into smaller components. So you have to deliver a project. You have to carry on your work into some segments. If you expect that you have to deliver the project as a whole, then it's not a good idea, because it's not necessary that the whole of your project is 100% ready and it doesn't have any problem, or it doesn't need any of the modification, and it will be difficult to hand over all the project at one time. So it is advisable that you break down your project, you break down the project activities into some parts. It is useful to create a work breakdown structure to identify and break down the deliverables in the project. So deliverables in the project is the project itself. It could be any part of the project, part of the software. It could be the components, maybe the divided sections delivered at some stages. A work breakdown structure is the foundation of the project planning. So basically, when you talk about the project plan, it means you plan about the breakdown structure, that how you will be developing your project and how you will be delivering, and possibly the delivery will be divided into some segments, and all the plan will carried out according to a breakdown structure. So get the team together and brainstorm all the deliverables in the project in no particular order. So it's not necessary that every time you focus on an order of the delivery, but talk to your team and think about it, that what are the deliverables have to be worked out and what are important, and no matter whatever their order is, but you can consider to work on individually. Write them down on sticky notes and put them on a whiteboard. Once everyone has thought of as many as deliverables as they can, break each deliverable down into successfully smaller chunks of work. So literally what you need to do, you need to take a whiteboard and sit in a kind of room and put all your tasks into the listing and write down on sticky notes, put them on a whiteboard and try to look at the pictures. Is a good idea that instead of discussing anything on the table, that what you have to do, like a presentation to a team, you need to select a kind of sticky notes or kind of marker work, write down on the whiteboard, that okay, you have some targets, you have some work breakdown, who will be doing it, at what time they will be doing. So break down the deliverables to a point where the project manager can easily manage them. So obviously, it needs to be managed by the project manager and guided by the project manager. Once completed, arrange the sticky notes into groups under the major area of activity and add, change, remove, and shuffle the sticky notes until your work breakdown structure is accurate, complete, and logical. The purpose of work breakdown structure is to decompose the project deliverables into easily manageable work packages. How? Let us have a look on the picture. So work breakdown structure, levels, for example, project title which you are working on, for the company particular project manager name and the date, then the project title. Here is on the level 1, the project is itself. On the level 2, you have split it, for example, into the activities, activity 1, activity 2, activity 3, activity 4, and then at the level 3, each activity has a particular task. Let's say 1.1, work point 2, 1.3, 2.1, 2.2, and further on the level 4, you have to do some tasks in the subtask. So everything is explained into this advice. Now it will be clear that your team can independently work on any activity and without any particular sequential order. No matter the activity 4 could be completed before the activity 3 and may be joined together later on. So the work breakdown structure was one kind of project plan. The number 2 is the logic network. Logic network is also a kind of time chart. A logic network shows the sequence of activities in a project across time. It indicates which activity logically precedes or follows another. So possibly, if you have a look on here, as we discussed, that in the work breakdown structure, the levels started and all of the activities like 1, 2, 3, 4, they could be carried out in parallel. While in the logic network, you have to give a precedence that which activity needs to be carried out first and then the other activities. For example, you need to have an start as well as finish, and in middle, the A, B, C is the first entity to be worked out, and later on the D and E, F, G, and H. However, according to the logic network, possibly you cannot start with the H, or the precedence is basically the matter. So simply, a logic network shows the sequence of activities in a project across time. It indicates which activity logically precedes or follows another. So how you will need to start? Simply, as I explained, create a start and end sticky notes and put them on the whiteboard, simply like the work breakdown structure. Arrange a work breakdown structure sticky notes in the logical sequence of activities from left to right. So you have to arrange from left to right. You need to start that which activity needs to be done as a first. Then join the nodes with an arrow in and out. You need to put an arrow in and out, that which activity will get an input, which activity will get an start, and then how they will feed to another activity. All connecting lines on a network enter at the left in the beginning of the activity box, sticky note, and exit at the right ending. That's true that you start from the left and go further towards the right. Lines do not enter the top or exit the bottom of the activity box. Unconnected lines are not allowed. So you won't find any unconnected lines, and they do not enter on the top or exit bottom of the activity. So you cannot put any line on the on top of any activity, but you need to start from the left to right. All activities must connect to another activity or the start or end of the project. So obviously, the all activities have at least connection with start or end, but they are not a separate one. Write the time every activity will take on each sticky note to calculate the project duration. So possibly you can further allocate the time on particular activity, let's say A, B, and C, that these three activities will take, let's say, 2 weeks, and then D and E will take about 1 week, and possibly F and G could also take 1 week, and H might take 3 days. So accordingly, depending on the complexity of the activities, you need to allocate the time as well. So the plan structure could be like a work breakdown structure or the logic network. So once completed, you have created a logic network that will help you understand the dependencies in your project, time scale, and its workflow. This technique can reveal valuable information that might otherwise be get overlooked. So the dependency is also observed into this logic network because H is dependent on F, and possibly, let's say, E is dependent on B and C. So it really gives you a clear identification of the activities and their dependencies, that which are dependent on the other. Now, under managing project risks. So let us understand that what is the risk in software engineering. A risk is a potential problem. It's an activity or event that may compromise the success of a software development project. So basically, because of the risk, you can compromise the success of a software project development. Risk is the possibility of suffering loss. So you can suffer a loss, and total risk exposure to a specific project will account for both probability and the size of the potential loss. Guesswork and crisis management are never effective. Identifying and aggregating risk is the only predictive method for capturing the probability that a software development project will experience unplanned or inadmissible events. So it's your responsibility that you need to identify and aggregate those risks that are predictable, and you need to capture the probability whether those problems or risks will arise or not. So it is your responsibility that you need to understand that what are the risks involved and what needs to be predicted. So if there is any risk, then they could lead to a termination of the project. Discontinues can involve, the schedule delays can be involved. Possibly your project could be delayed according to the schedule, and cost underestimation could happen, that possibly you could run out of the project resources, or you could have the less amount as expected, or maybe your budget can be insufficient. So you need to understand the risk, and you should have some potential understanding of the expected or predicted problems or risks involved into the project. Now, what is risk management in software engineering? So if you know that there can be some potential risk involved, then you need to manage it. So how you can manage? Let us see. Risk management means risk containment. No, you need to control the risk and mitigation, and you need to lessen the risk. So you have to control the risk. Obviously, you cannot remove the risk. You cannot remove the risk at all, but you need to control the risk, as well as you need to try to lessen the risk. You need to reduce the risk. How? First, you have got to identify and plan. If you will have an identification of the risk and plan to deal with the risk, then it will be good. Then be ready to act when a risk arises. So it is much more appreciable, and it is good to know that you know the risk and plan the risk and be ready that whenever the risk arises, you should be ready. Drawing upon the experience and knowledge of entire team to minimize the impact to the project. So not only you, but your experienced and knowledgeable team should also be ready to minimize the impact on the project. So be well prepared and to control and mitigate the risk. Risk management includes the following tasks: identify risk and their triggers. So you need to find out the risk as well as how, from where they will be triggered. Classify and prioritize all risks. So you need to know that what are these risks. You need to give a classification, give them a type, what type of the risk is, maybe the type of the risk possibly could be the time risk, possibly could be the team risk, possibly could be the funds risk, and you need to prioritize that which risk is much more important to tackle. For example, if you have a risk of the limited number of team members, and however the time may not be the problem, but so you need to focus on the number of team members and the core important team as compared to the schedule. Possibly you are flexible in the schedule, but you cannot compromise on the team members. So you have to classify as well as prioritize those kinds of risks. Craft a plan that links each risk to a mitigation. So you should have a plan that whatever the risk is, you have to mitigate, you have to reduce the risk. So the reduction of the risk should be carried out according to a plan. Monitor of risk triggers during the project. So you should need to monitor that from where the risk will be triggered, and if the risk has to be triggered, it shouldn't be the case that you should know any of the risk arise, but you were not triggered and you didn't knew on the time. Therefore, you need to monitor the triggers, that wherever the risk arise, you were monitoring and you were well aware on the time. Monitoring means that you are monitoring, you are watching everything on the time. So that's important. Implement the mitigation action if any risk materializes. So if you are monitoring, then immediately you need to apply the action of mitigating the risk, reducing the risk if any risk materializes. Materializes in a sense that if any risk emerges, it comes in front of you, then you should immediately apply the risk reduction actions accordingly. communicate risk status throughout the project. So whatever the risk is, you need to communicate, you need to inform to your team members and whoever is concerned that what is the status of the risk, whether it is reduced, whether it is uh, increasing, a kind of media news you need to follow on. Certain risk factors, some risk factors threaten all phases of the system development life cycle. So whatever the system development you are doing, it has to be carried out using system development life cycle, and possibly certain factors are involved into which can threat the phases of system development life cycle. They could be from initial inspection of the project to final release. So initial inspection could be the requirement specification, the feasibility study, to the final release. Final release is basically the delivery of the project. So those risk factors should be considered in the project development or the software system development life cycle. Some risk factors that are common to all system development life cycle phases are discussed below. Continually changing requirements. One of the risk factor is basically the change in the requirement. Since requirements cannot be fully described at the start of the project, it might change continually over the system development life cycle. That's true that if whenever you wanted to develop any project, then you cannot get the 100% requirement from the customer at the start of the project. Possibly you would have to start with a 50% information, maybe with the 70% information, or sometimes maybe with the 25% information given to you in the form of requirements. So even if you are given the 100% requirements from the customers, then you still have a doubt that requirements would change with the time. They are expected to be changed. If this factor was not successfully mitigated, it means if you did not consider that there shouldn't be any chance of requirement change, time and budget may overrun. Testing may not cope with this continually changes, since test plans are designed early according to the initial requirements. So if you started and you did not make sure by the passage of time that requirements have been taken and they are not supposed to be changed anymore in the future or in the near future, then you will be basically reducing the risk. You need to make sure at every stage and in the early stages that you expected the change in the requirement, but you tried to reduce this risk, because if you will not reduce the risk of changing requirements, then you can be delayed and you can overrun the budget. And obviously the testing plan can be affected, because the testing plans are advised in the start that how you will be testing. If you didn't make any plan of testing the development or the project in advance, then obviously you will not have an idea that how and against what requirements you will be testing your project. And obviously if the requirements will be keep on changing, then your testing plan will be disturbed. Time contention is basically the time conflict, because the time is the major risk factor that threats all system development life cycle phases, mainly the implementation and testing phases. So if you have a problem in time management, especially, it can conflict the implementation stages as well as testing phases, you can be under time, and that can be a problem. The time contention may force the developers to discard some functionalities which might be core ones, neglect some non-functional requirements and other design quality issues, and do the testing poorly in order to go in progress and deliver on time. So sometimes if you are in a conflict of time, if you have a shortage of time, then developers will be under the stress. They will be possibly be neglecting some important functional and non-functional requirements. Functional requirements may be that they may not implement particular modules, and in the non-functional requirement they might compromise the quality of the work. So time conflict is basically a danger regarding these, especially the quality of the project. Project funding loss. Project funding might be interrupted at any phase in the system development life cycle due to lack of commitment from the funding agencies. Once the funding is lost, the project cannot be completed and it directly goes to fail. So the funding is also the major risk factor. If you lose the funding, it means you lose the team and you guaranteed to face the failure of the project. Miscommunication. Many troubles may appear if there was miscommunication between the customers, managers, and developers. The developer may not understand the user actual needs, and the customers may under or overestimate their expectations. So the miscommunication should be avoided between the customers as well as the developers. If the customers are unable to communicate well with the developers, then that's a big risk factor that you will be compromised. So you will be compromising the quality of the project. Now, risk assessment and risk management strategies. The first step in developing the risk management plan is to define the procedure you will follow to identify, analyze, and prioritize risk. So it is your responsibility that you need to look at the risk and assess the risk, as well as you should have some procedure and tools to minimize the risk, identify the risk, and prioritize the risk. So let us see how you will be doing the risk assessment and management. Create initial risk list. Before you decide upon your risk management strategies, it is good to anticipate the kind of risk you will need to deal with early in the inception phase. Inception phase is the your requirements phase. Create an initial risk of create an initial list of risks and use these to guide you. You could use the risk checklist provided below to create the initial list of risks. Assign risk management team. Decide which project team members will be responsible for managing the project's risk. It is important for this team to be representative of both technical and managerial functions. So it is good to know that you should be able to communicate all the possible risks involved, and you may let the team know whether it is the technical or managerial team, and those teams should have been assigned the roles and responsibilities for managing those project risks. So the strategies of the risk management are you create a list of the risks. You need to communicate those lists, and you need to inform those possible risks to the team, whoever is dealing with. Decide strategies for managing top 10 risks. So it is much more advisable that the top 10 list of the risk should have some strategy to carry on. If you will focus on those top 10 risks and you will have the strategy, then it will be good. Then you will be managing the risk as per required. So for each risk on the list, the risk management team should decide upon the approach that will be used to keep the risk in check and how to remedy the situation if the risk should occur, a contingency plan. So the risk assessment strategy is that you should have the top 10 risks involved, and those lists should be ready, and the remedies of those risks should also be ready to be followed or applied. Define risk indicators for top 10 risks. For each risk in the risk list, identify a measurable condition that, if it should occur, tells you that the risk is about to become reality. These conditions are the risk indicators. The project manager will monitor these risk indicators throughout the project and implement the contingency plan identified in the risk management plan. So risk indicators, basically the risk indicators are the triggers. For example, if the risk has to be monitored, let's say if there are 10 developers in the team, and for example, if 5 of the developers are not available, they are not working, and then possibly you can carry on your work to be continued. But if you think that 6 developers are not available, then indicator is triggered and you need to take the action that, okay, the project cannot go through if you have a less number of team members as expected. So that's true that you not only identify the risk, but you should have some the indicators, some threshold, in order to take some actions according to the remedy plan. Then set a schedule for risk reporting and reviews. Risk management is most effective if it is treated as a continuous process. So continuous process is basically you are not only dealing with the risk at the end of any particular stage, but it needs to be carried out all the time. The risk reporting should have been carried out all the time and being reported. If you will not be reporting the status of the risk, then you will not be doing the safe project management. The risk management plan should lay out a schedule for the issue of a regular risk status report and risk review meetings. It should also identify the conditions when unscheduled risk review meets should occur. So in a sense that probably you should have a chart that whatever the risks are being monitored, then you need to tick mark on the sheet Okay, that day on the daily basis you monitor the risk, you communicated the risk, you communicated the indicators, and you took the action accordingly. So it is very important that your schedule should be schedule of the risk assessment should be reported and reviewed continuously. Risk management strategies. There are three main strategies. Risk avoidance. Recognize the project so that it cannot be affected by that risk. Avoidance is in a sense that, for example, you know well that there is a risk involved, but obviously, possibly you cannot do anything. You cannot do anything. And for example, if you have the limitation of the software developers due to any reason and you cannot stop the project, you have a continuous budget, and for the time being, you will have to avoid that particular risk at any cost. Otherwise, there is no such reason to discontinue the project. The next is the risk transfer. Recognize the project so that someone or something else bears the risk. Customer, vendor, bank, another element, and so on, is a specific strategy of risk avoidance. So, for example, you transfer the risk. How you can transfer the risk? Possibly, if you knew that there is a shortage of the developers, and possibly the developers may be absent due to some reasons, maybe political reasons, maybe financial reasons, then you will not be responsible for the absence of those developers, possibly due to the weather problems, the any natural disasters. If they are not coming, then you can easily transfer the risk of those kind of mishaps to someone else. So that's also you, but you need to make sure that you are not responsible for that particular action. So that's also a kind of the strategy that either you avoid the risk or you transfer the risk. Then next is risk acceptance. Decide to live with the risk is a contingency. Monitor the risk symptoms and decide on contingency plan of what to do if the risk emerges. So the last option is probably, if you are not able to transfer or avoid, then accept the risk, but still keep on monitoring and try to the alternative plans in action, that if though that kind of risk is being involved, then you should be very much ready to accept the risk along with certain contingency plan. Contingency plan is the backup plan. Measuring progress. An effective measure for tracking progress should exhibit the following characteristics. The measuring progress is basically that you need to monitor as well as measure the progress, that what percentage of the work is being achieved. You can look at the two characteristics. One is the objectivity. The measurement should be based on criteria that are observable and verifiable. Measurements based on objective criteria are difficult to manipulate to make things look better than they are. Near real time is the second one. The measurement should reflect what is going on in the project now, not what had happened a month ago. We want to be managing present, not the past. So, in a constructive way, if the objectivity constraint is considered, then you need to look at that what kind of complexity of the project has been achieved. For example, if you think that a complex portions of the project have been done and objectively they have a work, the critical part has been done, and possibly the easier parts, no matter if they have been completed or not, but they may be ignored. While near real time, if you have been asked that, okay, whether you have completed the important parts or not, but you will be asked that whether how much percentage of the work you have completed is really the concern, and you need to classify the characteristics of measuring the progress into two. One could be the objective, other could be the near real time. Multiple levels of the progress measurement. Multiple levels of data enable a manager to drill down and isolate problem areas or to roll up for higher level views. When a project is slipping its schedule, most managers want to know if the entire project is late or specific troubles spot need attention. Along with drill down capability, the measure can be rolled up to summary levels of upper management review. Thus, an effective progress measure provides a vehicle of communicating project status to people outside the project. So, instead of looking at the objectivity or in time or real time progress, you can consider the multiple levels of the progress measurement, and the multiple level of progress measurement will be dealt by the top level management, and they will decide that whether the particular progress is acceptable or not. Next is the prediction. The measure must support the projections about the future progress. Simply knowing that a project is behind schedule or not enough. We also need to predict when it will be completed. In general, past performance provides the best predictor of the future. So, not only the current progress has to be monitored, but the prediction should also be considered, and you should be able to know that how you will be able to predict that when the project will complete. If you know then when the project will be completed, then it is good. It's a kind of measurement. But remember that the progress is dependent on the past performance. If you expect that the less work was being done in past, then you expect the less progress. And if you expect that the faster development was carried out in the past, then you can predict that, okay, you can rely on the previous progress, but it's not 100% always guaranteed. So you need to consider that the prediction is kind of the projections about future depending on the past progress. Now, the two types of measures are commonly used for tracking progress. So, what are the two types of measuring a progress? One is the activities completed. This measures compares actual progress against plan in terms of the number of percentage of completed activities. The other is the work units complete. This measure compares the actual progress against plan in terms of the number of percentage completed project units. So you can take this progress in kind of length and width. If you talk about the activities completed, then probably you could check the length of the project overall, and when you talk about the work units completed, maybe you can check according to the width, that if the number of units might have been completed individually, and then you can consider the probability of the overall measured progress. So it's really depends that how the development as well as the measuring of the process is considered, like we discussed in the previous section. The multi-levels of the measuring progress will really be dependent on the management. Similar way, the completion of overall project and completion of the units is basically can be the tracking progress type. So really matters that what type of the progress you are interested. Maybe you are interested in overall percentage, or maybe you are interested in the unit work breakdown. Next is you have to schedule plans. The software development plan describes a developer's plan for conducting a software development effort. So the plan itself is basically the steps advised for the development efforts. The software development plan provides the acquire insight and tools for monitoring the processes to be followed for software development. So when you create a plan, it means you have each and everything ready in front of you, and you have to be very much insightful. You are able to look at the detail that how it is going. It also details methods to be used and approach to be followed for each activity, organization, and resources. The software development plan should be developed in the contractor's preferred format and should document all processes applicable to the system to be acquired at a level of detail sufficient to allow the use of software development plan as a full guidance for the developers. So whenever you create a software development plan, it should be made according to the preferred format, whatever the format your development team likes. It should have been made accordingly. It should reference specific standards, methods, tools, actions, reuse strategy, and responsibility associated with the development and qualification of all requirements, including safety and security. So the software plan should have been made, should have all the requirements, whatever the requirements need to be considered by the development team. It should be followed accordingly, and it should be visible to the team as it is basically the guidance. So it should have been acted according the pre-planned efforts. Dealing with the problems during the project monitoring is one of the poor communication. The communication is probably the most important factor in the success of any custom software project. After all, if you don't understand the basic problem you are trying to solve, nothing else is going to matter. Software projects often fail because the software developer doesn't understand your business, your software needs, or your priorities. Depending on your developer's location, they might not understand English or anything. So communication is basically most important. If your software developers, they don't understand you, they don't understand the requirements given from the customers, then obviously there is a big problem. You will be facing lots of problems by getting the requirements from them. Possibly they may not be able to communicate you in a proper language. Their understanding of the language can be one of the major problems. So you need to be very well aware as well as should be ready to face these problems that possibly you can face the problem of communication. Poor oversight, failing to supervise and manage the work being done is the number of one reason most software projects fail. If the projects are not being supervised well, overall site, and there is a poor oversight, then project is going to fail if nobody is looking at the software architecture or periodically reviewing the source code for problems. The odds are good that a real mess in the making. This is potential problem with freelance software developers who's checking their work. If you guess nobody, you are probably right. So to supervise the project is mandatory. How? Basically that whoever is being involved in the development of the software, they have to be sure that how they are going through and whether they are doing right or not. The big problem with the freelance work is when they keep on doing their work from their remote side and they don't know whether they are doing right or not, and there is a big chances that they are definitely doing wrong, but they think that they are doing right, and but that's a problem. So poor oversight, poor supervision is a danger. Poor developer skills is also the expected problem. If you think that all software programmers are the same, but it's not true, and it gives a negative impact to the software development software project because of the poor computer programmers. The number of ways a software application can be constructed is almost limitless, including the number of bad ways it can be done. How? No matter if you think that you can find the maybe hundreds of programmers around you, but every programmer, maybe they are qualified programmers, but you don't expect that all programmers will implement the project in a very well manner and in an organized way so that you will get a right product. But no, the poor developer skills, the poor strategies, maybe the mistakes can be the possibilities that you face. So you look at the development team skills and try to rely on the experienced as well as intelligent software developers. Do not just consider that their qualifications will only be the one kind of positive impact in front of you, but their quality aspects can be different, and the way they work is also important. You need to choose them. PRINCE2 is a methodology, is a process-based approach that focuses on organization and control over the entire project from start to finish. Now we are discussing the project management, the team of the project to be managed, monitored, and the strategies need to be implemented to reduce the risk and create the more successfulness, the percentage of the successfulness for the project. PRINCE2 is one of the methodology that helps you to organize and control the overall project from start to finish. That means projects are thoroughly planned before kickoff. Each stage of the process is clearly structured, and all loose ends are neatly tied up with the project ends. The PRINCE2 method is built on 7 principles. Projects must have business justification. The teams should learn from every stage. Roles and responsibilities are clearly defined. Work is planned in stages. Projects boards managed by exceptions. You should have some management for the exceptional conditions. Teams keep a constant focus on quality. Approach is tailored for each project. So these steps should have been carried out in a Prince methodology. So if you have any question from this, Abid, do you have any question?
No, sorry, don't have at the moment.
Okay, you can still revise these slides and you are most welcome to ask any question at any time. So we
Okay,
end this session now, and after a short break, we will continue the learning outcome 3. Yeah?
Okay, all right.
Okay, fine.